Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for how you have uniquely created each one of us to do good works that you've prepared in advance for us to do. Help us to see our uniqueness and to celebrate how wonderfully you have created each one of us and how you've created each of us with a need for the others around us. None of us can do it by ourselves. It's about the body of Christ working together. So help us to see ourselves again as that blessing and the others as a blessing. And most importantly, direct us to Jesus, the real blessing, who through his perfect life, innocent death, and amazing resurrection has won the victory for all of us and now empowers us and engages us to carry that ministry forward. Guide us, direct us, lead us, have us learn what you would have us learn through your word, through your blessing, through your grace. Amen. All right, so we're going to go through some introductory slides, some foundational slides first. So go ahead, please. You can go to the second slide here. So applications with StrengthsFinder. How can you use StrengthsFinder? Well, you can use it for individual growth and development, to understand the diversity that surrounds you. Use it in roles that you're playing, roles that others might have. You can use it in projects. Align people by their strengths to what they might be doing best on a project, and we'll get more specific with that in a little bit. Coaching and development for individuals to encourage them in their strengths, engage them in their strengths, to grow in those strengths, and then team building, understanding your strengths in light of the team members, the unit of the body of Christ that surrounds you. And tonight, during the break, I'm going to want you to talk about your strengths with each other. Start sharing that. Again, share with people around you as we go along. And hopefully at the end of the presentation, too, we'll have some time for some questions or comments or thoughts. But I'm prayerful that tonight will take you deeper and be a blessing for you as you understand your strengths, the strengths of others, and how God can use that in his kingdom, and specifically here at St. Peter the Core. The next slide, please. So again, individual development, team effectiveness, leadership effectiveness are uses of strengths, how we can work forward with those. All right, next slide. We have this in the packet. I'm not going deep with this because I know the sermon series and everything else is taking you deep with the unity of the body of Christ from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. But I just have it in the packet so that you know that all of this goes back to the foundation of God's word. Please use this as a devotional, share it with your family, dig deep. And again, the powerful words in this, especially on the next slide, if you would, again, looking at that last verse, but in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. It is no accident that you're all here tonight. You're here because this is part of God's plan. You're here because you have strengths to use in this ministry for the kingdom, for the purposes, again, that God has prepared in advance for you to do. These verses bring us that comfort. And on the next slide, what we see here is, again, that body. So many parts, and this just being the skeleton, but so many parts working together. And again, we're going to reference you to the fact that no part of the body is more important and no part of the body is less important. They just do different things. They have different roles, different responsibilities, different blessings. And that's the same with all of us. No one more important, no one less important. We need all of us working together for God's purposes. Next slide, please. So with strengths, again, it deals with individual development. So what, again, StrengthsFinder will teach, what we teach is that you are born with innate talents that God has given to you. So you might have the talent or special ability to meet people, Well, what that is woo. People with woo, which stands for winning others over, is the natural ability, natural talent to meet people. My daughter has woo. She's 18. She took this now, again, StrengthsFinder recommends 16 or older. They do have a Parenting from Strengths book where you can work with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, which is very powerful. We recommend that also. We can take people deep on that. But my daughter, who was very mature at the time and had great grasp of the English language and took StrengthsFinder about age 14 and a half, and she discovered she had woo. It fit perfectly. Because my daughter at age 2 and 3, we'd go to a conference and we'd be in the pool area. She'd come back to Mom and I with her new best friend, Susie. And then 5 minutes later, her new best friend, Samantha, her new best friend, George, Bob, 10 best friends in 15 minutes. She had the ability, the talent, to meet people. Now, what you need to do with that talent, as my daughter's done really well with, is you need to take it to a strength. And we'll get a little bit more into that, but taking that strength as a now near consistent, perfect performance with that. And so the real strength of woo is not just meeting people, but using that ability to meet people to connect them to the right people, to bring them back to the people with other strengths that they need to go deeper with. And that's what we have. We have those natural talents, and we take them to strengths. Next slide, please. The other thing with StrengthsFinder, you need to realize that your strengths are unique. It's the one tool out there that helps us to see the differentiation in each of us. There are many tools that exist. Myers-Briggs, which is a personality test. There's the Insights, there's Emergenetics, there's Colby, there's DISC. There's ones that put you in categories like cat, fish, dog, shark, colors. Those are all great in their own way. But with each one of those, you have about a 1 in 20 to 1 in 64 chance to have the same letters, same colors, same groupings. And I'm telling you, there is not another one of you. There's not another Tim Glendy. There's not another Scott Gostchock. And my wife says, praise be to God, one of me is probably too many, just depends upon the day. But the fact is, I'm unique, you're unique. The way you do whatever you do, no one will ever do the same way. And that's pretty awesome. And StrengthsFinder helps us to see that, because the chances of someone having the same top 5 strengths that you have is 1 in 300,000. To have the same top 5 in the same order, which makes a difference, order makes a difference, is 1 in 11.4 million. And to have all 34 strengths the same in the same order, because you do have all 34 strengths, but diminishing return on results, but to have all 34 in the same order, it'd be like winning the lottery, just not going to happen. So again, it also goes into what we really like is positive psychology, which to me is just what God's word teaches. What does Jesus call us all the time? His beloved, his brothers, his sisters. We are a royal priesthood, a chosen people, crown of creation. Embrace who God has created you to be. And through StrengthsFinder, it's one tool that reinforces again how awesome each one of you are through God's grace and God's blessing. Next slide, please. Remember, your strengths are about 80% nature, how God created you, and there is some societal influence, 20% nurture, what surrounds you. So there is some influence that way of how you're brought up in situations, but really 80% is how God created you. Strengths do not change. People ask us that all the time. Do strengths change? No, they do not. What changes is this. Your top 5 account for 80% of your operational value. So you sit there with the top 5 for $19.99 from Gallup. If you get your top 34, I would talk to you about your top 8, because 6, 7, and 8 are in play, but they're not quite as high, but they are in play. So when people take this test a second time or a third time, what they'll see is no more than 8 different strengths show up between those 3 tankings. And then I'll rank order them, do a little analysis on that, and put them in order for them. But many times when people take it a second or a third time, it's because they don't like necessarily who they think they are. So I have the one young man that I've worked with for a couple of years. He's taken it 4 times, and he's finally said, I give up, because no more than 8 different ones showed up during the 4 times. He said, all right, you're right. I'm just going to embrace who God created me. I said, amen. That's exactly right. Let's work with those strengths. Let's embrace those, because there is no strength better or worse than any other. It's just, again, how we use it. So again, you see that. So 6, 7, 8 are in play. Some of your pastors have gone 34. You might go 34. You go to Gallup, it costs another $69. We don't push that, but if you really do want to go deep with it, we don't deny it either, because you can learn a lot from those 6, 7, and 8, as well as you can learn a lot from your bottom 5, where you're really never going to tap into those. All right, next slide, please. You need to understand that strengths are the top of the pyramid, the pinnacle. And the only way you're going to really operate from your strengths is if you have your pyramid in order, which means you have to be based upon the most important values, being a redeemed child of God. That has to be your foundation. Then right above that, you have to have good virtues, working with the fruits of the Spirit, patience, kindness, love. You've got to have that, because all kinds of people have strengths. But if they're not built on these things, they can use them really negatively. And they can use them to hurt and harm rather than to help and serve. So again, we encourage you. You have to be healthy with your virtues, fruits of the Spirit. And then most importantly at the top, you need to be spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy. Because Satan loves to attack us there. Because Satan doesn't want us working from our strengths. Way too much power in that. He wants us down in the depths, in the darkness. So he attacks us spiritually. So we encourage you. I'll put in the positive. We encourage you. Be in the Word, prayer life, devotional life. Pray about your strengths with others. And we'll give you some examples as we go along tonight of how to make these living. Also, we need to be emotionally healthy. Satan loves to attack us with things such as self-hatred, greed, jealousy, envy, anxiety issues, whatever it might be. We need to be emotionally healthy, or we'll never operate from our strengths, And then also physically healthy. You know that if you have a cold or a battling the flu, you're not going to be working from your strengths as well as when you're physically healthy. So we encourage you, get good exercise, sleep, movement, whatever it might be. So eating better, whatever will help you to be physically healthy. So you've got to be taking care of yourself. As we teach, those that have ridden on an airplane, you need to put your oxygen mask on first to make sure you're breathing before you try to help someone else. Because if you're not breathing and you're not healthy, I don't care what strengths you have, you're not going to help others. Let's go to the next slide. So your journey to strength is this again. We talked about that talent, right, of woo, meeting people. So the journey to strength is really this. Take your natural talent, meeting people for woo, add skill to it, add knowledge to it, learn more about it, and then use it times experience. And we're going to tell you today, forget about the bottom 15 strengths. Forget about anything outside of your top 8 and really focus in on strengthening those top 5. That's where you're going to find great blessings. So again, focus on building and leveraging those strengths. Next slide, please. The other piece, foundational, is strengths, as we teach them, are only strengths when they're used for others. SFO, strengths for others. So just as Jesus came to serve and not to be served, it's the same for us. So it's not about so I have discipline. Who has discipline as a top 5 in their top 5 strengths? Just raise your hand out there, disciplined people. You see a few around the room. Discipline is all about structure and routine. I've got my daily routine. I set my clothes out the night before. If I don't get my morning workout in the morning, my whole day is ruined. I love my structure. I love my routine. And that's a great strength when I can use it for others by helping them have some organization, helping them have some good routines. It's not a good strength when I make everybody follow my routine. That's not a strength for others. That's a selfish abuse of it to make me comfortable, to force everyone to be like me. No, I need to use my strengths to help others tap into other areas and to grow in their strengths. That's the key, strengths for others. Again, Jesus came to serve and not to be served. It's the same for us. Next slide, please. When you work from your strengths, as I referenced a little bit before, when you work from your strengths, it takes 10 to 20% effort to get 80 to 90% results. So that means for someone with woo, if they have a day where they get to meet and greet people, shake hands, kiss babies, connect people back, whatever it would be, they're going to walk away from a 16-hour day totally energized. But if someone has woo, which is relational, empathy, which is relational, let's throw in the relator, which, not relator, that's the exact opposite. Let's just throw includer into that. Very relational strengths. If they have a day where they have to spend 6 hours in front of a computer entering data without any human interaction, that 6-hour day wipes them out because they're working outside of those strengths. But they can do a 16-hour day of meeting and greeting people and go home and say, awesome. Because again, when we work from our strengths, it takes 10 to 20% effort to achieve 80 to 90% results. When you're outside of those strengths, the exact opposite. 80 to 90% effort to get 10 to 20% results. So again, we encourage, know your strengths, work from your strengths, use those strengths. And then where you don't have strengths, don't consider those weaknesses. Call them partner up opportunities. Who do I need to partner up with on this project, in this ministry, in my family? That's where the true power and the unity of the body of Christ comes together. Next slide, please. So the last one here before we dig deep into your strengths is this. Remember that strengths inform how, not what. Strengths inform how we do things, not what we do. So there are no top 5 strengths that make a better pastor, teacher, leader, husband, wife, son, daughter. There aren't. They just inform how we will do those things. So whatever task you have in front of you, whatever you're doing, look at how can I use my strengths in this area, in this role, in this ministry. That's the key. So often we get phone calls from pastors that'll say, I don't have these strengths, I shouldn't be a pastor. Nope, not correct. What is correct is how can I use those strengths in my role as pastor, and how can I help those around me to understand this is who I am. Mike Ewert, you're back there, right? I think I saw you. So Mike Ewert, Pastor Mike Ewert, he is the ultimate problem identifier and problem solver. He is great at that. He is great at that. So tap into those. But if you're going to have him go and use what you'll find out is a starting strength to get a ministry started, not his strength. But if he can help problem shoot it and figure out the issues with it and put solutions, he's energized. And he can do that. The first time I worked with him on his report, he said, Scott, this makes perfect sense. My wife comes home from her job and she tells me all these issues, and I tell her all the solutions. Now, I don't know if she appreciated that or not. But what he followed up with, he said, I should be a consultant for her company. I said, absolutely. In light of your strengths, you would be a great problem solver, without a doubt. And that'll make more sense in a minute. So again, embrace the strengths you are. Realize they inform how we do things, not what we do, and use those in whatever role you have. Now, it's true, certain strengths might lend themselves to certain fields and be used more readily, but don't limit yourself in your choices. Your strengths just inform how you're going to best approach everything, whatever that might be. All right, next slide, please. So let's talk about you. Many of you out here have done strengths and have your strengths with you, so we're going to dig deep now. And what we do with the Ministry Leadership Institute is uniquely different than what Gallup gives you. So next slide, please. Gallup breaks the strengths into 4 categories. The 4 categories that Gallup uses are relational, strategic, influencing, and executing. Those are their 4 categories. Those 4 categories are pretty nebulous in nature, a lot of strengths in each, really kind of hard to see how they interplay. So what we've been able to do through research of ours and partners of ours is to break the 34 strengths into 8 categories. So you see the 8 categories up here, a little blurry possibly here. We've got a cleaner pointer slide coming up in just a little bit. But you see our 8 categories here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define these categories for you. But right now, what I would like you to do, whether you do it on this sheet or there's a cleaner 8 category sheet, if you can see it on your sheets, is circle where your strengths are. Now again, it's tiny print, low lights, do the best you can, but try to get that in your mind. And what I'm going to do while you're working on that is I'm going to start defining the 8 categories. So here we go. Next slide, please. So here are the definitions of those categories. Traction. So there are 3 traction strengths: activator, command, focus. You'll see those on the top left. People with traction strengths are really good at getting things started. They love to get things moving. They love to get things rolling. If someone gives them an idea, they get it going. How many of you out there, if you have activator, raise your hand if you have activator in your top 5, activators. Okay, take a look around the room, look for your activators. That's a traction strength. Those people that have it, thank you. Activator is the ready, fire, aim strength. People with activator constantly want to be in motion. As a matter of fact, activators won't even stop for a red light. And what I mean by that is if they come to a red light, they'll actually take a right-hand turn and take a longer route home than to have to sit still. They want to get things moving. They want to get things going. Activators are great at moving. Now again, traction people, good at getting things started. Then the other category that you see there are driving strengths. So people with achiever, maximizer, competition, significance, self-assurance, etc. These are driving strengths. These are people that are naturally good at finishing things. They just love to finish things. For example, I have achiever number 2. Achievers, raise your hand. Anyone with achiever out there, raise your hand. Quite a few of you out there. Achiever is the hardest edged of the driving strengths. We're to-do list people. We love having to-do lists. We love checking things off the to-do list. As a matter of fact, I'll even write things on my to-do list that are already done just to have the satisfaction of crossing them off. Now, I'll get to some cautionary sides that will go deeper into the strengths, but driving people are really good at finishing, insatiable desire to finish. So people will say to me, Scott, you got traction, you got driving, what else you need? Starting, finishing. Well, see, traction will start anything, anywhere, anytime, and driving will finish anything, anywhere, anytime, but they may not be the right things. They may not even be necessary. They might even be completely wrong. And that's where you need people that have seeing strengths. So people with strategic, futuristic, connectedness, ideation, that list there that you have in the 8 categories. The seeing strength people bring sight. They make sure it's the right priority. So strategic is great at prioritizing, saying why you should do something or why you should not. Futuristic sees 7 years out, 10 years out, and it's just natural. They're the visionaries. So they bring the sight to make sure that whatever is being started, whatever is being finished are the right things at the right time in line with the mission, the vision, the values, the strategic plan, etc. So that's the seeing category. Then we go to the next slide, and we get to the fourth category here, interpersonal. So interpersonal strengths, there's quite a few listed there. There's relator, which I have number 1, relator. There's woo, includer, etc. People with interpersonal strengths are just naturally good at working with people. They love being around people. They love working with people. They want to be engaged with people. Now, those of you without interpersonal doesn't mean that you hate people, no matter what your wife has told you, okay, or your husband, well, either way. But no matter what they're saying, it's not that you don't like people, but it's just not as natural. It's just not as natural. Does it mean that you can't work with people? No, no, no. If you don't have interpersonal, take a look at your 5 strengths and say, how can I use my strategic to get people involved? How can I use my achiever to help people finish? Now it comes across interpersonally. While you're working from your strengths, you're actually working with people and encouraging them, engaging them. But again, the even better thing is just partner up. Find those people that have those natural interpersonal and partner up with them. And let them use their strengths, let you use your strengths, and watch the blessings that come. So people with interpersonal naturally good at working with people in different ways. And I'll give you some definitions of those strengths in a little bit. And then the next category on the top right of the 8 category sheet are what we call lifestyle strengths. We call these lifestyle strengths because they influence, they flavor how you do everything. How you use your strengths, how you live your life, how you operate through everything. So people with positivity. Who has positivity in the room? Raise your hand. Positivity. In your top 5. So look around again. People get familiar with this. Positivity. Excellent. People with positivity brighten the room with their smile. The glass is always half full. Today is great and tomorrow is going to be even better. They bring that climate to wherever they're at. They lift up the environment. And you might say, oh, that's a strength. I was working with one pastor and his wife had strong traction and driving really hardcore, get things going. And her husband had positivity, number 1. And I worked through a couples thing, and she said, you're telling me positivity is a strength? I said, absolutely, it's a great strength. She said, I come home, and she has a really high-powered job, and she comes home and she complains about the world, and he's like, it's going to be okay, dear. It's going to be great. And she said, I just want him to tell me, yeah, everything is terrible. She said, I view him as Pollyannish. And after we went through the strengths and talked about each other, 2 weeks later, she writes an email and says, totally revolutionized our marriage. I never thought of that as a strength of my husband. I thought he was weak. But now I view that as a strength. Absolutely revolutionized how they looked at each other. So now she taps into it. When she's down, she comes to him and says, lift me up. And that's what we need to do with positivity people. Encourage them. Lift us up. Make sure that even after the most difficult meeting that we walk out with our heads held high knowing that God's in charge and we're going to be okay. And that's what positivity brings. And that's the power of understanding those strengths. But lifestyle, the influence, how we live our life, how we do everything. That's why we call them that. Wild cards then, the 6th category, there are 2 wild card strengths, learner and communication. Technically, according to Gallup, every strength has a balcony side, an upside, and a basement side, a shadow side. And again, you want to avoid the shadow and work out of the balcony. Now, we talk very little about the basement side, although I'll give you some caveats tonight. But we talk very little about that because what we really want you to do is focus on the positive. Strengthen your strengths, okay? Look for partner-up opportunities, and be healthy spiritually, emotionally, physically. That's what you need to focus on. Don't focus on what you shouldn't do, but on what you should do. There's more power in that. I'll give some caveats, though, with the strengths, so you kind of understand that shadow side. But again, technically, wild cards really have no downside. Learner and communication have no downside. However, just like a wild card in poker, if you're familiar with poker, or whatever it might be, with a wild card, if a 2 is wild in any game, it does you no good to just have a 2. But when you use that 2 to make 3 of a kind, or to make a straight, or to make a flush, or to fill in that piece that's missing, that's when it's powerful. So just like that with learner and communication, to learn or communicate, speak for the sake of learning and communicating, not a strength. But when you're learning more about your strengths, when you're learning more about other strengths, when you're communicating your strengths, mission, vision, value, that's where it's powerful. Wild cards enhance every other category. And then we go to the last 2 categories here. Problem identification and problem solving. And I'm going to take these 2 together and walk this home for you. What I tell people is I have 0 problem identification and 0 problem solving in my top 5. It doesn't mean I can't see the issue, and it doesn't mean that I can't solve a problem, but what it means is this. With problem identification, I'm going to put out 5 fires, 7 fires, 9 fires, and my wife, who has a problem identification strength called intellection,
So there are 3 problem identification strengths: strategic, ideation, intellection. She comes to me, taps me on the shoulder, and says, Scott, instead of putting out all those fires, why don't you just turn off the gas valve? Oh, turn off the gas. Brilliant. Now I'll work my way back to that and realize the problem is not all these fires, but the issue is that the gas is leaking out, but she'll see it much quicker. She'll have to put out 2 or 3 fires and get there. I'm doing 9, 10, 11. And then with problem solving works this way. People with problem solving. So who has restorative out there? Restorative in your top 5. Raise your hand. Restorative people. Of course, Mike Ewart, absolutely. Okay, quite a few of you. Restorative is the ultimate fix-it strength. People with restorative can see the steps for the solution quickly, and where I will take 9 steps to turn off the gas, I'm going to turn it to the right, I'm going to hit it with a hammer, I'm going to use duct tape, I'll get it turned off because I got strong driving strengths, I'll get it finished. But it's going to be a mess in the end. It's going to take me 9 steps. And people with restorative are going to say, here are the 3 steps. Turn it to the left, cap it, seal it, done. And that's what it is. People with restorative, people with problem solving get to that 3-step solution rather than me without that 9 steps. So I need to tap into the unit of the body, encourage the use of those strengths, use everyone around me. So here's how all 8 categories work together, again, in light of the unit of the body. So if we go to the next slide, please. Starting with problem identification. It doesn't always have to be this order. It can fluctuate, but here's a scenario of how this works together, again, in light of the unit of the body. People with problem identification will say, here's the real issue, turn off the gas. Then they'll partner up, remember that term, partner up with someone who has problem solving. And the problem solving people will say, here's the 3 steps to solve that issue. And then problem solving people want to partner up with someone who has traction. People with traction strengths then will get that solution started. Then people with traction strengths want to partner up with someone who has driving strengths who will make sure it gets finished. The whole time, the seeing strength people will make sure it's the right priority, it's strategic in nature, it's part of the futuristic plans, it's using connectedness, getting everybody informed, everyone together. The whole time, the interpersonal will make sure that the people are walking with, they're not falling too far behind, getting too far ahead, they're engaged in the process, they understand what's happening. The lifestyle the whole time will make sure that things are being done positively, with good harmony, with good responsibility, etc. And the wild cards will enhance every step along the way. So when you really understand your strengths, the others around you, these 8 categories, and what they mean and how they interplay, go ahead and go to the next slide. It's amazing to see how God will bless you. Whether it be students, class, team, school, family, whatever. And how God will help you to, again, carry out those good works He's prepared in advance for you to do as He takes you through your God-ordained ministry, and how He's blessed you to serve in high capacities to do amazing things out of love for Him, and how He has uniquely and wonderfully created each of you. Those are the 8 categories. You have the definitions there, and I'm going to want you beyond tonight to talk more deeply about it, go deeper. And again, normally we spend 4 hours with a group. We'll spend 6 hours, 8 hours. So tonight you're getting really a Cliff Notes version. But I'm hoping it'll whet your appetite and excite you again to see how amazing God is. And we don't hear this enough, but how amazing each one of you are. And how much God has loved you to create you uniquely the way He has created you. Pretty awesome. Pretty amazing, God's love at work in each of us and through us. Kretzmann, a Bible commentary guy from days back, says, we as Christians do not embrace the superhumanness of Jesus working in us and through us. What he's really saying is turn it all over to Jesus. He's blessed you. He's gifted you. He's at work. Let Him loose. It's never us. It's always Him. Same thing with our strengths as we serve Him. All right, let's go to the next slide here. We're back to the 8 categories. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk us through each of the strengths, and we'll pause in a little bit. I've got discipline, so I'm really time-oriented. I've always served in my lifetime, I've always served urban ministries, and I would take them on these huge field trips, and I would go to parents and I'd say, hey, we got to leave in 3 minutes and 38 seconds. And at first they would laugh, oh, that's funny, that's funny. After about 5 times, they're like, oh, he's serious. I was serious. That's my discipline. 3 minutes and 38 seconds. That's exactly right. So discipline, structure, routine, exact time. So I'm going to explain these strengths. Laugh about them, think about them, pray about them, but realize each strength is very powerful. So I'm going to start on the top left, go through traction strengths. I'm going to ask again everybody to raise their hands again when their strength comes up. If you have it in your top 5 anywhere, just raise your hands and then please look around the room because these are your other body members. These are the other body parts in around you. Now, I'm not expecting that you're going to memorize this tonight with each other, but the more you share and the more you intentionalize it, the even greater the power of it. So let's start on the top left, traction with focus strengths. So who has focus in their top 5 or 8? So you look around the room. There's a few of us, Tim Glendy, Mike Navani, a few others. Here we go. So focus. Focus is a traction strength because these are people that know what they want to do. They always know what. And that singular what is so important to them that they will get it started. Whatever it is in front of them, they want it started and they want it started now. So what can happen to someone with focus, if that what they want started doesn't get started, they can become frustrated, disenchanted. I know, Mike, you and your wife, we had this discussion with that, especially when you put focus and achiever together. It just hypercharges that, and you really want that what. But guess what? Funny what, I just keep repeating that. Focus always knows the what, but doesn't always know the why. So now I'm going to jump to how this works together again, and I'm going to jump down to strategic. So you see strategic. Strategic is a seeing strength and a problem identification strength. See, strategic people always know why you should do something or why you should not. They're great at prioritizing. So who has strategic in the room? Raise your hand. Quite a few. This is great. Strategic people, it's the executive level managerial seeing theme. You can see around corners. Strategic people love taking big steps, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plans, all of that. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And strategic can help inform focus. So Mike and his wife with focus should go to someone who has strategic and say, this is what I think needs to be done. What do you say, strategic people? And strategic can then say, that's great, but we need that in 3 months. Here's what we need right now. And then the focus can readjust, whatever it would be. And if you trust each other, trust those strengths, work together, that's how they can partner up together. Now, strategic can work with others. All the strengths can work with others, but there's some specific, really neat ways that strengths can interplay that I'll point out as we go along. So that's focus, and that's strategic. Strategic prioritizing. And strategic, you'll see, is a seeing strength as well as a problem identification strength. Fits 2 categories. As problem identification, strategic sees around those corners, can see the issues that would arise. And that's really a great power piece with that, to see that problem identification. And again, seeing sees 3 months out, 6 months, 9, 12, 15. Likes those big steps. They bring that to the table. Let's go back up to traction. So activator, we talked a little bit about that before. I won't beat it to death, but again, the activator people, raise your hand so at least you can look at the other members of the body around you. So there's my activators around the room. Not too many, just a few of you. Activator, ready, fire, aim. Love getting things started. Just want to run with it. Give them an idea, they'll get it started. Now, a great partner again for activator is strategic, because strategic can help prioritize. But also, this is going to sound odd, a strength that butts heads. You got to understand that naturally, if you don't understand strengths and their purpose, they can butt heads. So activators, constantly in motion, fast, 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 get there, get it started, get it going. And who has deliberative in the room? Raise your hand if you have deliberative in your top 5. Deliberative. So look around, especially activators, look at deliberative, because these are the people that you're going to butt heads with if you don't understand. All right, so deliberative is a seeing strength as well as a problem-solving strength. See, deliberative people want 99% of the information and then a little bit more. So I was talking with the one gentleman in the one group, and I said, here's how deliberative works. Deliberative will be researching buying a new truck. And they'll be looking at 6 months, 7 months, all the consumer pricing and all this, the reviews, everything's there, all this information, and then they're getting ready to pull the trigger, and guess what? The new model comes out. And now they got to start all over. Now, this particular gentleman wasn't buying a truck, but he said, oh, I just did that with a laptop. I researched a laptop for 6 months. I was getting ready to buy it, and then the new models came out, and I wasn't going to buy it. My wife said, you buy it. This is enough. You got to get it. And he said, thank God for my wife telling me to do it. It's been a good computer. But see, deliberative wants that 99% and then some. But why it's such a powerful strength is this, because deliberative finds that information, digs deep into it, gets it there, brings it to the table. And then as a problem-solving strength, they help you avoid the potholes and the risks. Now, where deliberative can be irritating to activator and command is activator and command just want to go, go, go. Deliberative slows them down. But see, when they're working well together, it's this. Deliberative will help the activators from running off the cliff, and the activators can help deliberative to pull the trigger when they've got 50% of the information or enough to go forward. And that's how they work well together. That's how they complement each other. Because command, being just the opposite of deliberative also, who has command in the room? Raise your hand, command. Wow, activator and command, awesome. You can get anything started at any time. That is sweet. Do you have any interpersonal in your top 5? Yes. Well, thank God. Thank God. Because if you do not, there's a lot of dead bodies out there, I'll tell you that. So, all right. So an understanding that with command needs 1% of the information, and they're running forward. They're charging forward. They're moving on it. Give me 1%. They can't understand. If there's a church meeting for 3 hours, they can't understand that because you already got the idea. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. The building's there. Buy it. What do you mean you got to figure out finances? Sure, we got money. Just do it. We'll figure it out as we go. So command and activator charge, but see, deliberative, again, can help them avoid the potholes. Help them steer around the risks and keep them from running off the cliff. But if you don't understand that and appreciate that, you look at someone who doesn't have strengths at you and they're like, that person's crazy. What are they doing? Or that person's slowing things down. How come they're so slow? It's because we're not understanding the strengths. But when we do, it's powerful. And I'll give you some family examples of mine in just a little bit that bring this to light too. So that's traction, starting. Let's go to driving now. We've taken a few of the other strengths, but let's go to driving. So we talked about achiever again. Who has achiever in the room? Quite a few before. So look around you. Look at your body parts in here. Look at the achievers in here. I have achiever number 2. Excellent. Put your hands down. I just love finishing things. I love doing the dishes. Immediate gratification, getting them done. Why? I will not use the dishwasher. Waiting 45 minutes for the dishwasher is frustrating. I want to wash, dry, put away. But that's where I need a strategic partner who will say, Scott, use the dishwasher, and while the dishwasher is going, you can get 5 other things done. Makes sense, but I just want to get it done. That's why I love folding laundry, immediate gratification. Shoveling the walk, I can see what I've done. Cutting the lawn, I just do things. And once I get going, I'll do it. Yeah, I'm like, oh, wall needs painting? Okay, let's paint it. All right, check things off the to-do list. The problem with achievers and the dark side with achiever, and my cautionary note to you all, and you need encouragement with this, are 2 things. One, we're not good at prioritizing. We start with the easiest thing to check off the list, but it may not be the right thing to start with. Achievers also have trouble starting long-term projects because they want to get things done now. So if they have something that's going to take a year or 2 years, I encourage achievers to chunk it or phase it. Here's where I need to be in 1 week. Now I can check it off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then finally I'll get to my year goal. But you've got to be checking things off along the way, otherwise you're not going to even start it. And the last thing with achiever is achievers many times have trouble living in the moment. So achievers, raise your hand again. I guarantee you, and you're not going to offend me, I guarantee you, each one of you here right now, and it's no offense, is thinking, when this is over at 8:30, I got to get these 3 things done, get the kids' lunch packed, get this done. Because achievers constantly live in the next thing they have to do and don't always enjoy the moment. So just personal confession. Now, if you're working well from your strengths, you're avoiding that. But I can tell you personally for me, when I would go to my children's baseball games and things like that, I always brought my laptop, I always brought everything else with me because I couldn't just enjoy the moment. I had to be getting the next thing done. And in the back of my mind right now, I want to check my phone to see how many messages I have, quite honestly. That's my achiever coming through. So I have to learn how to work with that and temper that and use my achiever really as a strength to help people finish and to get things done. Maximizer. You'll notice that maximizer is a driving strength as well as an interpersonal strength. It fits both categories. And you'll see that with a number of strengths that fit both categories, or 2 categories. Who has maximizer in the room? Raise your hand. All right, so you see Pastor Tim back there with maximizer. I'm going to pick on him because I know him well enough where I can pick on him a little. See, maximizer, this is how it works as a driving strength. People with maximizer personally want to be maximized, if they feel like they're not being fully utilized, if they feel like they're not being fully tapped into for their strengths, if they're on a committee and they can't really help it, they want out. It demotivates them if they can't be fully utilized with the strength of maximizer. They want to be fully tapped into. And that's why it's a driving strength. Because when you're fully tapped into, you're feeling invigorated and you're finishing those things. And it's a real push to finish. And then as an interpersonal strength, it is the hardest edge of the interpersonal strengths. People with maximizer are all about the end destination. They enjoy working with the high-level people and taking them to the highest level. Maximizers enjoy it when their child graduates school. They're like, yeah, awesome, great. They love it when their child gets married. Yes, another step in life. They love it when someone gets to that high level. They love finishing. They're all about the end destination. And they love it. But they have zero time, patience, or tolerance for people that need hand-holding, that need step by step by step. See, maximizers go to kindergarten teachers and preschool teachers and say, I don't know how you do it. No way I could ever do that. So the exact opposite of maximizer and can butt heads is someone who has developer, which is an interpersonal strength, developer. So who has developer in the room? I'm going to take these two together, developers. So Tim, look at all the people you're going to butt heads with right there. Or everyone look at Tim because you're going to butt heads with him. So.
My mother-in-law raised her hand.
Explains a lot, doesn't it? There you go. That's exactly right. So when we look at developer in light of maximizer and developer just by itself, so let me just tell you this. People with developer are all about the process and the journey. They love that. People with developer are naturally attracted to elementary level education many times because they love it when a child learns how to tie their shoe or learns that one math fact or the second word or whatever steps it is. They're all about baby steps. How many of you are familiar with the movie, this is going to date myself, What About Bob with Bill Murray? Baby steps, that's developer, little steps. Whereas maximizer is like, you got to be kidding, baby steps, you got to be taking these giant steps. But you need both. You need both because developers are known as the natural encourager. They encourage. They see the potential in everyone. And they can work with someone down here and help bring them up step by step by step. Now I'm going to take us back biblically here. And now again, this isn't doctrine, but this is my own analysis here, is Paul had maximizer. Barnabas had developer. See, Barnabas was known as the encourager, the great encourager. And developer, that's one of the characteristics, is a great encourager. So I really believe Barnabas had developer, Paul had maximizer. So when they got together, if you're familiar with this, they got together, there was an apostle, a disciple they were training called John Mark. And John Mark burned Paul, didn't do well, and John Mark needed a lot of hand-holding. And Paul said, I ain't working with him. There's no way. And Barnabas said, but there's so much potential here. He can go. And Paul's like, forget it, I'm out of here. See, they butted heads. And they split in not so good a way. But John Mark stayed with Barnabas. And Barnabas kept developing him. And then Paul comes back around and says, wow, John Mark is awesome. I can work with him now. And see, Barnabas brought him up to that high level. And Paul then can maximize him. And that's what we need. Tim needs developers around him to help do the hand-holding, to lift people up, and then let him teach the PhD final class. Okay? See, because developers are the ones that enjoy that journey in the process. So developers are the ones that cry when their child goes to kindergarten the first day, or when they get married, or when they graduate, because it's the end of a journey. It's the end of a segment of life. And they don't like that. Whereas maximizers are like, yeah, awesome. They're out of the house. This is great. So again, when we understand these strengths and work them together, do you get that? Do you see that? Developers work with them, hand them off. Let the maximizer take those final steps. Excellent. So we go back again, down from maximizer is significance. So who has significance in the room? Raise your hand, significance. All right, I'm going to pick on Mike Navani over here. Not many of you, just a few. I'm going to pick on Mike Navani here. Significance is a driving strength. See, people with significance want to be attached to something bigger than life, something that's going to impact hundreds of thousands of millions of people. What call did you just get, Mike? I'm sorry. I think everyone here knows. But the fact, there's no surprise in my mind how good God is to put a call in front of Mike Navani who has significance, such as the Time of Grace Ministry. That's right in his wheelhouse of his strengths of significance, to be attached to something bigger in life, something that's going to have this massive impact. And because of that significance, it pushes him not to satisfy himself. Remember, strengths for others, to make the biggest difference for God's kingdom. That's what significance wants. Now, the cautionary side for significance is this, is that if you have significance and you don't have command or activator or self-assurance, sometimes significance can manifest as a fear of failure. Because people with significance without some of those other strengths will say, I don't know if I want to try that. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. Because they want it to impact greatly. So again, partner up opportunities. So people with significance, find someone who has self-assurance. And see, self-assurance are people that, I like to joke, who has self-assurance? Raise your hand, self-assurance. One, is that what I see? All right, that gentleman is never wrong. Is your wife here? Is that your wife or girlfriend? Yeah, see, he's never wrong. At least in his mind, okay? Because self-assurance is all about this innate internal confidence that whatever is on their mind is absolutely the right thing. And see, when you have self-assurance with significance, self-assurance will reinforce the significance and say, go for it. It is the right thing. And they can partner greatly. Now, again, the cautionary side for self-assurance is do get other people's advice and things like that, because we can have the possibility of being wrong. But if you're really using it right, if you're throwing it out there, Mr. Self-Assurance, it probably is right. So you're really blessed to have him. I just want to let you know that. That's great. He'll let you know that later, too, so that's good. All right, again, self-assurance, that pushes you, confidence in that. And significance with self-assurance is powerful, that combination factor. Because you can not only have the confidence in what you're doing is right, but impact hundreds of thousands. God is good. So again, we'll go back to driving here, and we'll go to competition, and then we're going to take a break in 2 minutes. And I'm going to give you some instructions on the break in just a minute. But let's go to competition and finish out the driving category. Who has competition in the room? Raise your hand. Competition people. Mike Novotny again, no surprise. All right. A few of you over here. All right. Competition's a driving strength. Remember how I said maximizer wants to be maximized themselves? See, maximizer is all about internal goals that motivate them. Competition people are motivated by external goals. So if you go to someone with competition, again, I forgot your first name, Justin. So Justin has competition. If you go to Justin and say, Justin, as a congregation, we need to raise $50,000 in 6 months. Justin's going to say, whoa, I'll raise 100 in 3 months. Because competition is motivated by external goals. Competition people love spelling bees in school, they love that stuff. They enjoy it. Is that right? So your name, ma'am? Mallory. And you have competition?
Number one.
So you loved it when the spelling bees came over, this little game in class in the winners, and you got to win. Now, we worked with this one missionary pastor who was competition number one. He said, my family won't let me play games with anymore. I said, you're a sore loser? He said, no, I never lose. And he said, what we figured out now after going through StrengthsFinder is this. Instead of playing games where there's a singular winner, they play actually a team game as a family now where they all work together to solve the puzzle, get to the end. And he says, those are the games we play now. Because it works to his strength, the competition, but it builds the kingdom, it builds his family because he brings them along with. So competition is not about winning for yourself, it's winning for the kingdom, winning for God. That's the power of it, and it drives you to finish. So external goals. All right, it's a lot of information I'm throwing at you, so hopefully this is helping whet your appetite, get you excited. What I want you to do over the next 10 minutes on break, certainly grab some refreshments, coffee, whatever it is, but whomever it is in the room, and this is the assignment, you got to talk to one person that maybe you haven't talked to about their strengths, one person, and share how you have used one of your strengths today or in the past week, one of your strengths for the purposes of God's kingdom, and then let them share with you how they've used one of their strengths for the purposes of God's kingdom. That's the challenge. So competition people, I know you're probably going to talk to 3 people, 5 people. That's great. But the rest of you, please do that. Please do that. And when we come back in, we're going to finish going through these, go through some more practical examples, and bring this all home. So thank you for being here.